Welcome to a wide open space. Here, our focus is strengthening our faith, cultivating ourselves, and creating lives that we love. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Nichelle Guidry Stewart. Well, hello, and welcome back to a wide open space. I am your host, the Reverend Dr. Nichelle Guidry Stewart, and I am so grateful that you have come back to spend another Saturday with me in this intersection of faith and personal development, in this decidedly womanist space where Black women are unapologetically centered. Today's episode is special to me because this is my birthday episode. This week I turned 41, and I am so grateful. I have no shame about my age. I think I look amazing. I feel amazing. I'm happy with my life. I turned 41, y'all. To God be the glory. If this was a type of show that had sound effects, I would probably put the pew, 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 pew right there, because this is cause for celebration. So this episode is special. I'm just going to be reflecting on some things I learned in my 40th year. Obviously, 40 is a big deal. And yes, it was for me. I'm going to be sharing some of the wisdom I gleaned from that year and responding to a question from one of my listeners, one of my students, who wanted to just submit a question for this birthday episode that I could speak to out of my own lived experience. And so we will get to that as well. In addition to this being my birthday episode, this is special because this week I also celebrated, along with my sorors far and wide, 113 years of sisterhood, scholarship, and service. And so I want to send a very special shout out and to all of my sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Sorors, I hope that you are still celebrating as we continue to make impact in this country and beyond. And special Founders Day shout outs to our D9 sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha and Zeta Phi Beta. We are celebrating ourselves and each other, and all the ways that our organizations have saved our communities time and time again. I could go down a rabbit hole talking about the power and the significance of Black Greek letter organizations, specifically our sororities. I am not one of these Christians who would ever dream of denouncing my letters because I worked hard for them, first of all. Second of all, theologically, I believe that I am nuanced enough to be able to hold my values and my beliefs as a follower of Christ and my values and the traditions and rituals of my organization in tandem, because I do believe that they speak to each other. And also, and I think most importantly, in my life and in the lives of anyone who has really been steeped in Greek life, to me, Delta is an avenue and a vehicle for living out the mandates of the gospel. Jesus was very, very clear throughout his ministry that he came to seek and save the lost, that he was concerned about those who were on the margins, that he was invested in a project of widening the center so that everybody could have a place. And for me and for many, many others, our sorority life is our vehicle and our avenue for doing that work in our communities. We do it through our community service. We do it through our educational initiatives. We do it through our advocacy. We do it through our activism. We do it through our sisterhood to each other and amongst each other. We do it through how we live out our vows each and every day. And so once again, shout out to all of us as we are celebrating our founders, what they laid out for us, and the ways that we continue to carry it on in our communities in this country and beyond. This week is also special because 13 is Founders, 14 is my birthday, and 15 is King's birthday, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. Growing up, I used to love celebrating my birthday because the very next day would be a holiday for the King holiday. And as I'm thinking about the evil that has been unleashed in this land, I really think that now is an amazing time for us to circle back to the moral heart of Dr. King's ministry. Garrison H posted this really great reel this week about King being about that life. And I think it's such an important story that's told about Dr. King, because oftentimes the version of Dr. King that is celebrated in this country has been sort of flattened and deeply, deeply, deeply whitewashed. And we have sort of traded in the prophetic king for the palatable king. And when we do that, we lose, once again, the moral heart of his message. With Dr. King being staunchly anti-militarism, anti-poverty, and anti-racial segregation in this country, when the only thing you ever hear of Dr. King is about his dream, which is quite powerful, and you associate him with "we shall overcome," there's a real loss of the real spiritual power of what he was really trying to say and what he was really trying to do. Specifically, I don't have any scripts. I just find myself going down this rabbit hole. I think it's really important that we circle back to his letter from a Birmingham jail, because as I think about how we got to this current sort of, again, this unleashing of evil and this current administration, I think about the role of religious leaders, of Christian leaders who traded in their Christianity for white Christian nationalism, who are bowing at the altar of white supremacy, white Christian nationalism, and the sort of theological sort of covering of white supremacy is a huge part of the reason why we are in the predicament that we are in right now. When the story is told, the white evangelical church and all those adjacent to it, whether they were frequented and led by white folks, Black folks, or otherwise, are going to be a big part of the reason why we got here. And I'm just so scared that it's going to take some real detrimental evil to take place, even more than we've seen, for some of these people to, quote unquote, come to Jesus. Because I feel like Jesus is looking down and he's like, I ain't in any of this. All right, this is my birthday episode. Let me get back on track. So let me share just a couple of birthday reflections, things as I was driving around my city, enjoying my beloved ATL on my birthday, spent some time with my family. I was just thinking about a couple things. And the first thing that I kept thinking about is just how, like, as I've gotten older, I just feel like birthdays are about simplicity. I used to love having these watershed celebrations, and I used to love making really over-the-top plans. And if you listened to my end of year episode, you'll hear that, I did that last year. I thought 40 was going to be huge, but it didn't go as planned. And so, as I thought about how I wanted to do this year, I just said, let's just keep it simple. I want to fill the day with my favorite people. I want to fill the day with my favorite things. And that is exactly what happened. And my parents reminded me, as we were talking while they're traveling abroad for a missions trip, they reminded me, you just have so much to be grateful for. You had a great husband, beautiful, healthy child. You have stable work that you enjoy. Your parents are still here. And I was just like, you know what, Mom and Dad, y'all are right. Y'all are so right. And I think that was the perfect framing for the day, because what it helped me to see is that there's so much to embrace and enjoy right here, right now. Every day is the gift. Every day is a celebration. And so on my birthday, I was so content to just wake up and do my everyday routine with my baby, make sure I got him off to school, go for my massage, go for my beautiful lunch with my brother-in-law and my sister, take myself shopping a little bit after, and then of course, cake and ice cream with my son, and then a beautiful, very romantic dinner with my husband. And just, yes, just my favorite things and my favorite people. I also spent the day thinking about just how this year I want to do some things differently. I found myself over the last couple of weeks, as I've been thinking about my birthday and my birthday outfits and my birthday looks specifically, thinking about why don't I wear certain things? Why don't I experiment with certain styles? Why don't I, try certain things? And then that got me to thinking, I've spent a good part of my life telling myself all the things I don't do and all the things that I am not, and all the places I don't go, and the things I don't wear, and the things I don't try, and haven't really experimented with how my taste and my preferences may have changed over the years. And so I just am really going to challenge myself lovingly to try to do some things differently. I did experiment aesthetically with some of my outfits for my birthday, and I'm really happy I did because I loved how I felt in those my outfits, and I'm going to post them on Instagram. But I had a little help at the stores that I went to because I asked some of the associates, like, I want to do something a little bit different. It's going to be my birthday. And thank God for those two individuals and those two stores who helped me, like, think about, okay, maybe the point is not your comfort, but how does it make you feel? Do you feel like the next version of yourself? Do you feel like an elevated version of yourself? And when I was like, you know what? Yeah, I do. I made a couple of purchases and I decided, let me rock it and see what it do. So I'm thinking across the spectrum of my life, like, what have I not allowed myself to do? What have I not allowed myself to try simply because I said to myself that I don't do it, or that I'm not capable, or that I'm not interested? Maybe it's time to start loosening those sort of self-imposed identities and some of those self-imposed sort of limitations, I guess, and start to be a little bit more curious and experimental and just whimsical in my life. And so thought about how I'm going to be spending some of this year trying to do things differently and stepping out on faith and curiosity. The last thing I was thinking about is just how grateful I am. I was something about that energy. Like, birthdays are such special days. And if you need to do some spiritual work, do your spiritual work on your birthday. There's some really, really electric spiritual energy on your birthday. And I found myself throughout the day, I was getting text messages and phone calls from friends and former students and colleagues. And every single time something came through, I found myself getting emotional because I just felt like, wow, people don't have to think about you. People don't have to send you a note of love. In particular, I did get a message from one of my former students who is now following in my footsteps and attending Yale Divinity School. And what she had to say really, really, really blessed me. And I sat with it for a little while, and I sat with how I don't always allow myself to be celebrated. But when I sat with the power and beauty, really, of what she had to say, and I let it sink in, I felt how good it feels to let myself be celebrated. And so I could just say thank you. Just say thank you. That yes, I have accomplished my mission. That yes, I have been impactful, and I can rest from striving to do those things because they have been done, and they happen every single day just by showing up. And so Yes, the title of today's episode is called Old is the Goal. And y'all, I mean that with my whole chest. And I can't take credit for this title. This came in a conversation with a friend and the music director at my job, Corey Stevenson, also known as Choreology. We were talking about my birthday, and he was like, "Yes, Dean, old is the goal." And I just I just put that in my heart and in my spirit because it is indeed the goal. And I've spent some time just kind of meditating on it. And I want to share with you what I mean by old is the goal. Old is the goal because not everyone gets to age. Not everyone gets to accumulate years. Not everyone gets to accumulate wisdom and stories. And not everyone gets to accumulate laugh lines. Getting older is a privilege that so many of our ancestors, so many of our siblings, so many of our beloveds did not get to experience. So when I say that old is the goal, what I'm saying is I'm happy I'm here. I'm grateful I'm here. I want to be here. I want to stay here. I want more years in the land of the living. And old is the goal because it means more self assurance and less need for validation and approval from voices outside of myself. I know who I am now in ways that I didn't in my 20s and in my 30s. And I'm okay now with not being everyone's cup of tea. I'm learning what my authenticity looks like and what it feels like, and practicing what it feels like to walk in it every day unapologetically. I'm happy to admit when I don't know something. And I'm at an age now where I humbly, happily, and excitedly run towards opportunities to learn, to sit in the seat of the student and to expand and deepen my own horizons through more learning. I love my own company. I trust in my intuition. I own my story. I know my preferences and my desires. I trust in God's presence, even when I can't feel God's presence in the same ways that I did in my 20s. Old is the goal because in a culture where youth and fear of aging are so popular and so exalted, especially for us as Black women, choosing to celebrate getting older is how we push back against that. And it's how we make peace with the natural progression of time. The celebration of our lives is a liberation. It's refusing to internalize the lie that our value decreases as our age increases. It's learning the body and learning to love the body, the face, the hands, the breasts, the belly, the backside as they change and their relationship with gravity transforms. Old is the goal because it means acknowledging and embracing my body as it changes and understanding that my attunement to my body and my love for my body is now more important than ever. This is not about anti-aging or fighting against time. This is about being fully present in the body that I have now, honoring what it needs, celebrating what it can do and what it has already done, and releasing any external standard that might cause me to dishonor my body or to speak about my body in unloving ways. Perimenopause is definitely knocking, but in about 8 to 10 years, menopause will be knocking. So I'm trying to look at perimenopause as my chance to practice how I will love and support my body when that big change takes place. Old is the goal because I'm watching my parents, my pastors, my mentors get older and stepping into my own elderhood. I'm in this middle generation now, still someone's daughter, but also someone who is learning to carry wisdom, to make space for others, to understand what it means to become an elder myself. I'm learning to regard the younger people in my life with the same respect that I wish I was regarded when I was their age. I'm learning to cultivate my own practices of mining and sharing the wisdom that's been yielded over my lifetime. Not just that I've learned and gained from others, but what I have learned and gained from my own experiences and stories. Old is the goal because I'm learning to discern when friendships are shifting and when they're passing away. And sisters, let me pause to say that this is hard, but with age comes the courage to honor both, to let friendships evolve into new forms when that's needed, and when to release them with love when the season has come to an end. Not every friendship is meant to last forever, and that is okay. And most friendships will evolve. And while it can be difficult, the evolution is a sign and a proof of life. Old is the goal because I have had some good and some pleasurable love experiences, but spending life with a partner who gets me and who sees me and who does his best every day to show up and to honor me is worth the journey and, quite frankly, the struggle. Old is the goal because I get to see my son, my niece, my nephews, both by blood and by love, grow up. I get to see them find their voices and discover their gifts and their passions. I get to be the mom who holds my son until he's soothed. I get to be the auntie who shows up, who cheers from the stands, who calls to check in, who drops the occasional love offering in the Cash App. Old is the goal because I finally get that my people and my relationships with them are what matters the most. Old is the goal because I am learning that God does not require my certainty. God does not require my clarity. That callings are expansive and dynamic. They are not contractual or even covenantal agreements. I have learned that by saying yes to God, I don't always know what I'm signing up for, but I do know that I'm signing up for an adventure, a faith walk, an offering, a prayer prayed, a sermon preached, just hoping that it will do what it was designed to do. Old is the goal, sisters, and I'm claiming it with joy. So let's go to the word. Isaiah 40:31 is one of my favorite verses and one of the most famous in all of Scripture. It says, "But they that wait," some translations say those who hope in the Lord, "will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." This verse has been coming back to me over and over and over again as I've been thinking about how my prayer this year is not for transformation, but for renewal, not becoming someone else, but being refreshed in the woman that I've become. Isaiah is writing to people who are tired, people who are wondering if they've got what it takes to continue to press on. And God's promise to them is not, "I'll make you into someone new," but God's promise to them is, "I will renew your strength. I'm not going to let you lose heart. I'm not going to let you grow faint. I'm going to renew your strength so that you can keep pressing on." Notice that progression here: soaring, running, and then walking. And sometimes renewal looks like soaring, those mountaintop moments when you feel invincible. Sometimes it looks like running, moving with purpose and vigor and energy. But sometimes renewal just looks like walking without fainting, just putting one foot in front of the other without collapsing. All of it is renewal. All of it is God breathing fresh life into who you are and who you are becoming. The verse also says, "those that hope in the Lord." And I think that hope is connected to surrender. It's trusting that God is doing something in us. God's got something that God is doing through us, with us, in us. It's letting go of our grip on who we think we should be and opening up our hands and our hearts to who God has created us to be and who we're becoming in the midst of all that we are going through. And after a year of surrendering and letting the changes change me, this is my prayer: for 41 and my prayer for anyone who simply wants to experience some renewal. God, I'm tired of change. God, change has happened and now I just want to be stabilized. Renew my strength, Lord. Renew my strength. I don't need any more transformation. I'm just looking for some continuity. Revitalize me so that I can sustain this place I'm in and steward the blessings that I have been granted. So let me share a few more things that have come out of 40. And then I'll answer that beautiful listener question. 40 showed me that the ease that I was praying for was already available. But it required my willingness to allow the changes in my life to really change me. For so long, I was holding myself to standards that belonged to previous versions of myself. Before motherhood, the productivity that I had before life got fuller. And what I discovered was that clinging to and holding on to those previous standards for my energy and for my availability and for my clarity of thought, those previous standards for my productivity and my output, clinging to those and trying to continue to live those out is exactly what was causing the friction. It was exactly what was causing the struggle. And I think that something really amazing happened when I started to really just surrender and acknowledge I don't have the same capacities. I don't even have the same desires. When I started to say, like, I got really real, like, I am a mother now. It is not realistic to expect that on top of these superwoman-esque standards that I was carrying before he got here, I would have to mount all these new responsibilities. Your girl was burnt out. And it didn't help that things were getting really interesting in other areas of my life. It really became impossible. But the second I decided to just kind of stop, we need to stop. Some things are going to have to change. That surrender is exactly when the ease that I had prayed for happened. Yeah. And I think often we hold ourselves to these old standards that become impossible as we get older, even if you don't have a child in your midst, even if you don't have some cataclysmic life change. And I think one of the most unloving things that we can do to ourselves and for ourselves is trying to accommodate previous versions of ourselves when what life is really asking of us is to let the change you. Yes, your identity will shift when you're grieving the loss of somebody you love. Yes, your habits will change when you become sick or your body's not able to function in the way that it did before. Yes, your preferences and your wishes for life are going to shift when you had some kind of horrible ending at a job that you loved. I'm naming some changes that many of us go through, and we often expect ourselves to just keep operating in this level and in this way as if the change didn't happen. But what would it mean if you let the change you? If you took the time to discern, who am I on the other side of this? What are my preferences? What are my desires as a result of what I've gone through? And what would it mean for me to just surrender, to stop for a moment, to slow down for a season, to just get a sense of where I'm at and who I am? I will never forget my first preaching assignment engagement after my baby was born. I knew I needed to cancel it. I might even share this with y'all on this show before. I knew I needed to cancel it, but I didn't cancel it because it had been on my calendar for so long. And because I had never given birth before, I didn't know how unready I would be. Baby boy was already going on 4 months. So, in my mind at the time, I just thought, I'll be fine by then. Your girl could barely walk. Okay. I wasn't completing thoughts. And when I stepped into that pulpit, I literally tripped over the cord that the mic pack was connected to because I felt so displaced from that space and that experience. And also because I didn't really know my body, And so, y'all, I became so emotional before the sermon even started. I barely made my way through it. And I didn't know. It was just one of those moments where I could tell it wasn't connecting, it wasn't landing. And had I just been a little bit more obedient to myself and surrendered and been able to just say, hey guys, I can't make it. Never mind the fact that, and my fellow mothers will feel me on this, my breasts were so engorged. I could not pump fast enough. Oh gosh, I had this looming fear that you were going to be able to see milk stains on my clothes. I just psychologically, physically, I wasn't ready. And the anxiety that came from that, it just wasn't worth it. And I think that was part of the beginning of seeing I'm just not in the same place that I was. And so 2025 40 was really about letting the change me. I stopped everything for a while, stopped working out, stopped going on the road for preaching, stopped certain things, even at my job, that I was I see myself doing a little bit too much because I really just needed to give myself time and space to just be. And just kind of see where the chips are falling and seeing where the dust was settling. And when I felt like there was some normalcy and some stability, I kind of started to re-implement some new routines, systems, and structures to help support myself in this new space. But that didn't happen until surrender happened. And so surrender. Yes, I think this resonates with my New Year's episode, flow, not force. We staying in the flow. And so the second piece, again, is for renewal. I noticed something on social media at the end of the year. And I honestly had to unplug because I felt like people are just stealing other people's content on the internet. You see somebody express something, and then the next thing you know, there's 20 other people saying the exact same thing. And you know what they don't? They don't even use the audio anymore. They just repeat the same idea. And sometimes even the same words, they created it. And I'm there is no integrity in these Instagram streets. But what I will say is I did find something compelling that I saw about 50 gazillion times. And it was this idea of stewardship. Not asking God for more, bigger in 2026, but asking God for, to be able to steward what we have. And, as a theologian, I'm always kind of I take the popular theology that I see online and I'm I consider it. I consider it. And as I considered this sort of wave of this idea of stewardship, I started to think about well, what does it take to steward, right? If God has given you some kind of a blessing or God has entrusted you with something, whether it's your job or a new season or a relationship or whatever, what does it take to steward, right? It takes, as I thought about it, for me, I discovered that it takes energy. It takes energy. to sustain your blessings. It takes strategy to sustain your blessings. It takes real intentionality. It takes moving your life around so that the blessing can be handled with care, and even sometimes with caution, because this world is crazy. And so some of the more precious things that we have in our lives, those precious people, those precious gifts that we have, we can't just be handing them out and sending them out into the world as if they are not precious. And stewardship requires a great and heightened sense of discernment. And so when I thought about all that goes into stewardship, I asked God, give me strength to do it. Renew my strength to do it. And help me to direct and guide my strength towards this stewardship instead of creating more to steward, stewarding what's in front of me, instead of creating more work for myself. Because I think, isn't that one of the ways that capitalism expresses itself, right? We think that having more, having greater, means that we're blessed. When in fact, even Jesus himself was like, the pearls I've given you, don't cast those before swine. And so protecting my pearls is going to really require some deep and intentional energy. And so I ask God, if you don't give me anything else, refresh and renew my energy and my focus so that I can be a good steward over what's in front of me, so that I can have a quality of life that feels good to me. I don't want to be tired all the time. I don't want to be exhausted all the time. And so I have decided that renewal of my thoughts, renewal of my thought processes, renewal of some of my personal systems and structures, renewal of my energy, and even renewal of some of my relationships. I'm looking for some refreshing this year. Yes. If there's no shifting, okay. Although if there is, okay. But I want to be refreshed. And so I pray that for all of us. Old is the goal, once again, sisters. And renewal is what helps us to not just survive our journeys, but to thrive and to flourish in them. So now I'm going to answer the question. And it was a beautiful question around self-forgiveness. She wrote, how do you forgive yourself? It's so easy to forgive others and to ask God for forgiveness, but why is it so hard to forgive yourself? I received this beautiful question from a listener that connects so perfectly to everything I've been sharing. And this is such an important question. And I think self-forgiveness and surrender go hand in hand. Because when we can't forgive ourselves, this is, again, another expression of us holding on to this fixed idea of who we should have been and what we should have done. We're holding ourselves to standards that don't account for our growth, our change, or the reality that we did the best that we could with what we had. Self-forgiveness means letting go of that good girl that should have done something different, making space and giving love to the human that you are, that does sometimes have to learn from her mistakes, that does sometimes have to learn the hard way, that does sometimes have to go the roundabout way to the place that God is calling you. And that's a part of what it means to be human. I think we also have to give ourselves grace, that in those moments where we didn't show up in ways that we are proud of, we did the very best that we could with the knowledge that we had, in the maturity that we had, and in the foresight and the vision that we had, with the resources that we had. We also have to be able to say, present me here today, right now, I'm going to give love to that previous version of myself by taking that lesson, holding it in my heart, and applying it to my today. I'm not going to let that version of me have gone through that in vain. I'm going to respect her enough to be able to say, thank you for showing up the way that you did and yielding this lesson, but we don't have to go through that again. And so forgive yourself. And I think it's so interesting that, as this person said, we are so quick to forgive other people. We are so quick to try to move on from the discomfort of having been hurt, disappointed, or let down. We are so forgiving that sometimes we don't even give voice to the offense. We don't even let the other person know, I was really hurt. And I wish that it would have gone differently given the tenure, the depth of our relationship. And I've also learned that when you give that grace to others and not to yourself, that it creates a cycle where you start to make yourself available for that kind of mistreatment. Because a part of self-forgiveness means that now I have a new standard for myself that also applies to others. So if they're going to be worthy of my forgiveness, then I'm going to be worthy of my forgiveness, and vice versa. And this is where this connects to everything else I've been saying on this episode. Forgiving yourself requires that you let your life change you, that you let the offense, that you let the hurt, that you let the lesson change you. It requires releasing the shame that keeps you stuck in an old version of yourself. It requires surrendering the need to be perfect and accepting that growth means you're going to look back and see that you would do things differently now. And with great grace and great love, you're going to hug yourself and love up on yourself and go do something kind for yourself. And you're going to just do those things differently now that you know. That's not failure. That is evolution. That is proof that you are not who you used to be. And that is beautiful. So how do you forgive yourself? You practice the same surrender that I've been talking about. You let go of who you thought you should have been and what you thought you should have done. You honor that past. You honor that past version of you that was doing the best that she could do. And you choose to learn from those experiences instead of being defined by them. And you give yourself permission, sis. I think that's a big project here on Wide Open Spaces, permission giving to be human, which means imperfect, growing, evolving, and always worthy of grace. So here is your practice. I call it the renewal practice. It's designed to help you surrender what needs releasing and step into the renewal that God has for you. Step 1, grab your journals. Name what you're ready to release, sis. Take some time to reflect on those old standards that are holding you hostage, those stories that are keeping you in a self-deprecating loop, and write down your answers to these questions. Number 1, what old standards of energy, tolerance, or productivity are you still measuring yourself against? What expectations belong to a previous chapter of your life? Number 2, what I don't do that, or I'm not that kind of person stories are you ready to loosen up? What fixed ideas about you are you willing to finally call into question? Number 3, where are you trying to stay who you were instead of honoring who you are becoming? What resistance to change are you ready to surrender? Don't judge yourself, sis. Just notice, name them, get ready to release them. Step number 2, practice the gratitude shift. Shift your attention now to what has sustained you. This is about retraining your memory. Retraining your memory, rewiring your brain to focus on the people, the moments, and the places and the grace that have carried you through. Write down a few people that have sustained you this year, who showed up, who loved you well, who held space for you. Write down 3 to 5 moments that have carried you. What memories bring you joy? What experiences remind you of God's faithfulness? What simple things are you grateful for in this current season? Not the big impressive things, but the small everyday blessings that are often so minute that we can overlook them. Read this list out loud. Let yourself feel the reality of how much you have been held and loved, even in your hard seasons. Step number 3, write down your prayer for renewal. Not transformation. You've already been transformed. This is about asking God to revitalize you in and for who you have become. Complete these sentences. God, I am asking you to renew my ... In this season, I need fresh ... and revitalize me in ... This could be renewal of strength, joy, vision, creativity, capacity, peace, whatever you need to be sustained in this next chapter. And pray this prayer every day this week until we meet here again. Let this prayer become your prayer anthem for this season. And remember, old is the goal. Getting older is the privilege, and renewal is what helps us not just survive, but to thrive in this life. Sisters and friends, thank you for celebrating my birthday with me. Thank you for letting me share a little bit of what came out of my 40th year of life and what I'm praying for in this 41st. I hope this episode gives you permission to surrender what is not serving you, to let life change you, and to loosen those fixed stories about yourself so you can loosen up and have you some fun. And to ask God to renew you. Don't go through this season. Don't go through this week tired. Don't go through this burnt out. Don't go through it with old stories and old standards. Ask God to renew you and to give you some fresh breath and some fresh anointing for the journey that you're already on. Next week, we'll be talking about the place of prayer in personal development. Until then, practice this renewal practice. Release what needs to be releasing. Shift to gratitude. Pray for renewal. Remember, you are not who you used to be. And that is exactly how it should be. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with me in this wide open space. Like, subscribe, and share this podcast with another sister who needs to hear this message. And I will see you next week. Have a blessed one.